Welcome back to Go Again Gaming and welcome back to the league that means nothing to round three. I am your host for the evening. My name is Ian. If you haven't seen the previous videos, I am one of the main casters of the league, and today I've got a very interesting game for everyone. It is uh, Anthony from the Philippines on Azalea Ace in the Hole. We are, of course, on Go Again Gaming, the home of the Azalea cult, and Kenneth Shivers on Enigma. Now, Enigma is one of the most powerful decks that we've seen. It's very, very sneaky how powerful it is because it is somewhat overshadowed by Zen and Nu. What with Zen having a phenomenal matchup into an Enigma and Nu being the hero from Mistvale that has the best matchup into Zen. But it has an unbelievable ability to prevent damage and really his ways around Azalea's dominate. Um, which, of course, Azalea has her own counters to, namely in the form of Murkmire Grapnel. Phenomenal card, unbelievable at just pushing through damage. If you can get a big Murkmire, it doesn't matter how much ward you have. Murkmire Grapnel says you have no ward. And for those unfamiliar with that interaction, because you can't prevent damage, each instance of ward is still going to attempt to prevent that damage, thus failing and popping. So it'll be very interesting to see how this one plays out. I've seen this game in person quite regularly at my local army, and seem to be very favored towards Enigma if Azalea can't find those Murkmires at the right times and can't force damage and force awkward blocks from Enigma. Enigma also, with the high blue count, has the ability to play a lot of defense reactions, including things like Unmovable, which can pose significant challenges for Azalea. I'm very excited to see how this one shakes out, and I'm going to throw you over to the gameplay and we'll see what happens. So we have what looks like a pretty standard loadout here from both players. The Azalea is running that long draw half glove in order to play around Warmonger's Diplomacy. That's not a card anyone is really worried about, right? Such a busted card against Azalea in particular. So we've an activation of Death Dealer, pitching a Rain Razors, loading a Bolton Shot, drawing a card. I imagine Anthony will have something else to tag onto this Bolton Shot because 0 for 4 doesn't really seem like it would cut it. Nope, we've got a Seek and Destroy and a Frailty, and that Bolton Shot is coming in for a nice 9 points of value, leaving Anthony with a card to Arsenal, potentially a second Rain Razors, who knows, and two very powerful on hits. So let's see how Kenneth chooses to respond with his very shiny uh, equipment there in traditional illusionist fashion, making sure to have the blingiest of all bling, including a graded tunic. Very fancy. And yeah, Kenneth just giving up 9, being like, yeah, okay, it's turn 1. I don't really mind. Um, let's see what happens. Anthony going to move to Arsenal. Very important for Azalea. Set up that Arsenal. Get ready to go. Have Skullbone Cross Wrap active as much as possible. It's such an integral part of the matchup in a lot of games. Obviously, a lot of decks have since moved away from being 100% reliant on cross wrap with things like Brody Spurlock and the Wolfpack's lists running Balance of Justice with a deck that's really designed around blinding as much as possible. Whether you get a buff or an arrow is less relevant for them. And Kenneth just returning fire with a Command and Conquer, pitching a Ripple away, floating 1, 2 cards in hand. But really, is that the whole story? No. Enigma can throw out a couple of instant speed things here and there, so you never know what's going to happen. Anthony just electing to take the 6, lose the Arsenal, doesn't matter. Can't be that bad. And it was the Rain Razors. You'd swear I've played against a lot of Azaleas in my time. Yeah, Anthony just going to flash in a Restless Coalescence. No counters on it. It's just a word 2, but it is a 2 damage for 1 resource and also prevention. So Anthony going to load in that Red Ledger, pitching a what looks like a withering or a sedation shot, and then firing it, having jammed two buffs on it, both premeditate, and I think that's a second seek and destroy. I am not entirely sure. It's quite hard to see there for me, but I assume that's a seek and destroy. So we're sending 11. No cards in hand. So really, Kenneth can look at this and give up three cards, and that Restless Coalescence, depending on how he's set up. Of course, he could just give up two cards in Restless and throw one big thing back, but you don't want to be giving your opponent on Azalea things like premeditate triggers because, again, Arsenal super valuable to Azalea. So Kenneth just lining up his blocks here, seeing what works best for him and how is he going to maneuver around Red the Ledger. Such a powerful effect in a deck like Enigma. And yeah, there we go. Hold the line. 2-3 blocks. So that is 8. And then we're going to preserve tradition, putting a Command and Conquer back in our deck, transcending with Enigma, activating our hero text, creating a Spectral Shield, and that is 8 block and Ward 3, covering up the entirety of the damage. Again, maybe we're not threatening anything back, but we are doing something very, very valuable, which is keeping our life total high in this matchup. Because again, the inevitability is a big factor in a lot of these games in Flesh and Blood. And Azalea, the onus is on Azalea to try and finish this game because she can run out of arrows or run out of buffs. And then when you're sending kind of middling threats, Enigma is able to cover them up pretty conveniently between cards from hand, spectral shields, ward auras, things like that. So let's see what we've got from Anthony. Checking the graveyard. Huh. I wonder if that's a codex you got there, buddy. Everyone loves a codex of frailty. Yeah, pitching an endless arrow, loading bolt shot, drawing a card. Probably got a buff to pair with this bolt shot to threaten reload. And obviously it gives it go again. So we have a Lace with Frailty into a bolt shot for 7. Pretty fair damage here. And Kenneth is going to have to think about whether he wants to block this or if he's willing to take a frailty and present Anthony an opportunity to reload. Now, as I said, it may be superfluous. That may be a codex because we did see Anthony pick up his yard. And 2 cards in hand, so there's no telling really what it could be. I wonder what's going through Kenneth's head here. He's probably trying to calculate what are the chances that this block ends up punishing me further down the line. 7, such an awkward number. Like breakpoints, always a big deal in Flesh and Blood. That's why 4, 7, things like that, 10 are super relevant. Now, Enigma, plenty of time to think. After all, this is the league that means nothing. It means nothing, so you really should think about what nothing you're going to get. Anthony just like looking at the 2 cards he has. Yeah, getting that reload set. Kenneth saying, "Send me the bill. We'll see what you got to follow up with here." And it's an endless arrow for 4. Pretty solid. Generally speaking, a card you want to consider covering up because one of the best things that can happen when you're facing an Azalea is they draw the all buff hand and just can't force any damage through. Endless Arrow just locks them into guaranteeing an arrow every turn as long as it keeps hitting. Kind of taking a bit more time to think about this one. 33 and 34. Life totals are relatively even. He's going to Snapdragons this one, anyways, Anthony. So 4 damage is going to be delivered. Thankfully, we don't have to worry about things like bullseye bracers in the matchup as it currently stands. But that is, in fact, a Codex of Frailty in Anthony's hand. Getting back a Red the Ledger, arsenalling it, and he does, in fact, have Skullbone Cross Wrap to activate, and the Tunic resource to send the Red the Ledger for 5. And now there are 2 Frailties on Kenneth's side of the board, and a Ponder on Anthony's. As we see in the high technology here, Frailty X2 on that lovely, lovely altar token that looks somehow like a post-it. Now, I think we're finally in a spot here where Kenneth might be prompted to block because Frailty kind of stops his auras from dealing a whole lot of damage next turn because Cosmo, obviously, for those who don't know, turns it into a weapon. And even though it is an aura, it is also a weapon, so it has that -1 text from Frailty. And with 2 Frailties on, it's not a whole lot you're going to be sending back there. Conversely, why Frailties can be very powerful into Azalea because it can mess with things like Bolton shots and stuff like that. I'm kind of thinking about what blocks he's going to line up here and how he's going to send the damage back. And I think I saw a Warmongers in his hand, which is very interesting. Might be thinking about holding on to that, forcing Anthony to pop that long draw half glove if he wants to do anything on his turn. Depending on that ponder, of course, because if that ponder draws him a buff, playing a Warmongers right now would be incredibly powerful. So this is a very interesting spot. Yeah, we're just giving up the Warmongers, we're giving up a lost in thought. So that is 5 covering the Red in the Ledger. Warmonger's going away. If you're Anthony, you're like, yes, I get to hang on to this long draw half glove. Maybe get the 1 point of value out of the block before I really have to think about when I want to use it. So we have a Spectral Manifestations here from Kenneth, making a Spectral Shield with 3 counters. So normally this would be a hammer for 4. With the Frailties, this is a hammer for 2. Not where you want to be, but hey, you can now start playing a protect the king strategy, protect the queen, get down Mr. President, whatever you want to call it, and just have a little Titan's Fist every turn. Very surprised he didn't consider blocking with the Dissolve Reality instead and trying to set up a Spectral Shield into Warmonger's Diplomacy and try and disrupt Azalea. Because I know for a fact, even though there are outs, and I've seen them, I've seen many an Azalea player get very upset when they get Warmongers. So we have an activation of Skullbone Crosswrap. And for those who are unsure about why Warmongers is a good thing, just watch how many non-attack actions Azalea activates every turn. And then we'll play this take aim, which gives us a reload. Excellent with Bolton shots, excellent on turn 1, excellent when you have to go off Arsenal for any reason because it allows you to trigger that Skullbone Crosswrap because those reloads are face down. And we have an Azalea activation, so this is our 3rd non-attack of the turn, and you can see what I'm talking about now. Obviously, Kenneth deciding to take probably a more aggressive line, or thinking that maybe the Warmongers was better served blocking right now. And then read the glide path, pitch Codex to Death Dealer, and load in a Markmire Grapnel by the looks of things. That card I was talking about in the setup. So this is whew, and a knock the death. Anthony, you've already activated Azalea. Are you? Why are you knocking said death whistle? Maybe he is just making sure he's guaranteed an arrow for his next turn. Always good to try and make sure you don't draw those what people would affectionately call Runeblade hands. After all, drawing all of one side of your deck is never where you want to be. Just ask uh, Kubakorn, Jacob Novicki, member of the Azalea cult, and I have once watched him draw 12 buffs in a row. So yeah, we're just going to set that red ledger up for next turn and throw a nice casual 13 damage. And if it hits, that premeditate is going to stick that red ledger right in the arsenal where it belongs. And let's see how Kenneth decides to play this one. I could imagine him trying to cover this up as best as possible. And then, if possible, keeping that shield alive, just going like, here's another 4. But we shall see. So we've got 2 cards from hand, covering a total of 5. And again, another card I mentioned earlier, an unmovable from Arsenal. So that's an 8 plus 2 from Shimmers, plus 3, a casual, 4 card 13. You can do it, I can do it too, says Kenneth. So that red ledger we do know still exists, but it's in the hand instead of in the arsenal, which is a big buff to Kenneth. And now we have the hammer for 4. Listen, everything is a hammer if every problem is a nail. Azalea just taken 4. She doesn't like to block. She wants to use her hand to threaten as much as possible. And Kenneth just moving to arsenal. Anthony pitching that red in the ledger, loading an infecting shot. Reading the glide path. Nice little upped target for Anthony. Is it an arrow? Is it something we want in the arsenal? Is it something we want for next turn? Is it something we don't want to see? Let's find out. Thinking hard here about this infecting shot. Yeah, we're going to play another buff, and then we're going to. I see we have 2 red in the ledgers in the pitch zone there, and we're going to send in 11. Just a casual 11 damage. This is where Enigma really gets to thrive, though, because if you can cover up 11 with the cards from hand, that first Spectral Shield every turn is free. It's just free damage. Bravo wishes he could have Nothos for 4 for 0 resources. So really now the problem here is the onus is on Anthony to force damage through. And from the looks of how the pitching has gone, there's going to be a clump of arrows later on in the game if we get to that point. Which, if you're tracking your pitch stack, can be good depending on how things work out, depending on how many cards you have. You might know what's on top of your deck, and really that's a huge benefit to learning that skill. Not an easy skill to learn, but one I recall Justin Koo talking quite a bit about, which, he's a Philippine Azalea player as well. They might know each other, they might have met at a big event. And that ability to track your pitch, set up your big turns, know that later in the game you've got something really powerful coming. So, yeah, we have a Phantasmaclasm, Traverse the Universe, Traverse to go get the Chi we activated very early on in the game. And that is an Inertia and a Blood Rot being threatened here. So I wonder, does Kenneth have another unmovable sitting around somewhere? Nice quick shuffle. Love to see it. And quick cut, making sure everything is nice and fair. That's the type of gameplay we love to see here on the League That Means Nothing. And now we're in the reaction step, I would assume, because no other cards have been added to the chain. And we've got a sink below, sinking a card. 3, 7, 8, 9, 10 currently in terms of ward. And we're going to pitch a chi to manifestations, give our boots word 3, and let them soak some of the damage. Oh no. So we've got ward 3, sink below for 4, ward 3, block 3, and a block 2, covering up the 11. Now we're going to see why Enigma is a problem. If you're not able to deal with that mirror guy in a turn or two, that mirror guy is the focus of the whole game now. You have to kill it, which means you have to take damage. Because if you can't kill it, the game might end. It might not feel over, but trust me, it'll feel over. This is the deck that is currently being restrained by Zen. The big boogeyman of the format is also the one that's holding Enigma back. Now, we have a pitch of a Levels of Enlightenment, a mirror guy with 4 counters, giving it ward 4, and the plus counters give it plus 4 damage as well. So 8, flip up the Uphold Tradition, give it another counter, make it 10. 10 damage, blocking 3, taking 7. Kenneth has a card in hand, has a resource floating. Let's just put that card in the arsenal and see what Anthony can do, because he now needs to get through ward 6, 4 cards, and really needs to get through that ward because that mirror guy is a issue. So we're going to activate Death Dealer, load a Endless Arrow, play a Lace with Blood Rot, and send in 7 damage. Not super threatening. We've no go again on this, and Anthony has a singular card in hand, which could be a Rain Razors. And if it is, great. If not, it's just probably going in the arsenal. We're going to try and set up some dominate, hoping with this 7 damage that we can force a few cards off of Kenneth. But that Upwell Tradition is a ward 1, and with a ward 1 and 2 cards, you'll cover up the whole thing, in fact, and be able to use just your tunic to return that mirror guy. Now, if that is a Rain Razors, Kenneth could be thinking, give up 9 blocking cards here and use the tunic. Tunic is amazing in this situation here because it represents a single resource sending in 10 damage. There is nothing in the game of Flesh and Blood that can deliver a rate like that. Hey, LSS, I don't know if you're listening. I don't know if you watch these, but Manifestations of Mirror Guy might have been a mistake. It's an extremely powerful card. I don't know if anyone has played against it in Mistvale Draft, but it can just be the draft. We've got 5 block committed here. Obviously, we have a ward 1 from Spectral Shield, a ward 1 from Uphold Tradition, which represents the 7 currently preventing. Anthony looking at his last card, just setting in an arsenal. That mirror guy lives to terrorize him yet another turn. Oh no. This is not the spot you want to be if you're Anthony. Because a 1 for 10 is ridiculous. Yeah. Giving up that long draw half glove. Thinking about the rest of his cards, think about his life decisions that led to this big ghost dragon walking over casually and threatening to punch him in the face. But don't worry, it still means nothing. It just feels like it means something when it's this big, it's this bad, and it's this powerful. So yeah, we've just got a 1 block. Anthony knows in these situations you have to just take it. Because if he gives up cards here, there's no way he's killing that mirror guy. You have to push and push and push. Now we've got a waxing spectre as well, so it's a ward 3. There's a blue in the pitch zone, so it gets a counter, and we can use that tunic counter as well to send in 4 and cut Anthony's life total in half. So really, if you're Anthony right now, you're looking for 4 buffs, a Murkmire grapnel. It has to be dominated. We have to just get through everything here. Yeah, we're going to use the tunic and send in another hammer. A nice 4. Hammers abound in Enigma. So we have a casual 14 damage for 4 total resources. That's fine. Who said any different? The good old fashioned 3 card 14. Great. The worst part is it's a 3 card 14 that just also incidentally gains you 8 life. Oof. So Anthony going to 4 here. I would say Kenneth has a bit of a life buffer. That would be one way I would phrase it. A bit of a life buffer, a bit of room to play with here. So we're going to reveal this Bolton Shot to Skullbone Cross Wrap. Anthony is going to opt, leaving the card on top. Playing a take aim. And we're going to go Bolton Shot here for 7 go again. 6 go again, even. So he's going to take the other approach, which is you have to try and go wide to take on this mirror guy. Not going to lie, I've been in this spot before. Not with Azalea, but with several decks, and this is a tough place to be because not only are you trying to chew through Ward 8, you are also doing it at a massive life total disadvantage. And there's every chance that your opponent can just say, yeah, whatever, send it. I have 5 cards, and you're not going to be able to 29 me. Not with your 3 card hand, anyway. So, Kenneth thinking about how he's going to block this, how best to block it. And there's an argument here for giving up 1 card and a Waxing Spectre and saying, hey, if you've got a Rain Razors, you got it. Anthony looking at this CNC presented as a block, this Ward 3 resulting in no damage. And now we are going to pitch another Bolton Shot, floating 1, activating Death Dealer, sending in a Remorseless and drawing us a card. Hopefully there are some buffs in hand here to go with this Remorseless, because Kenneth still does have 3 cards in hand. Yes, double buff, Lace with Inertia, Release the Tension, and Remorseless. There are no defense reactions coming out of this arsenal anyway, let me tell you. So we have a casual 11 damage presented. And now let's see what Kenneth is going to respond with. I think in this situation with 3 cards and no defense reactions from Arsenal, it could be safe to say that Mirror Guy is for shaving. But who knows? Maybe we have a way of blocking this out, and then Mirror Guy gets to live and just wait and give Anthony another bite at the cherry at killing Mirror Guy. Or do we give up 2 cards, let the 2 cards and the Mirror Guy suck some damage, play the last card on our turn with whatever's in our arsenal? Who can say? And we can see Kenneth is really thinking about this one. I imagine he's trying to work out if there's a way to keep the Mirror Guy around, if letting the Azalea just tee off on him again another turn in a row is going to be his best option. It's hard to say. There's probably a lot of things going through his head right now. As an illusionist player, he is probably used to being in situations like this. This is the famous thing about illusionists, that their life total Like your life total in card games in Flesh and Blood only really matters when it's gone. It is a resource. But for some reason, illusionists seem to take that to the nth degree and really just use it as a serious tool and just go, yeah, my life total is a resource, whatever. I'll win the game. I'll stabilize at 3 and never lose another point. But yeah, Kenneth is just going to let the mirror guy go, give up 2 cards. Here's a nice 11 covered from my 2 cards plus my big weapon. Take up Tunic. Card in hand, card in arsenal. Imagine we might see something get played. Nope. Kenneth is just going to drop, pass. So something tells me suspiciously that might be a defense reaction in arsenal. So we're going to use Tunic, load a bolt and shot, draw a card. These bolt and shots are really critical in this matchup because you need to be able to attack at least twice to start forcing damage through. Anthony checking the graveyard that famous tell of either a knock or a codex in hand. Because why else would you check your graveyard? You need to either know what's in your deck or in your yard. All right, Lace with Frailty, Bull and Shot for 7. 7 go against. No more Death Dealer activations, but we still have 3 cards in hand. Kenneth obviously with a nice life lead here, so he's in not the worst spot in the world. But I've seen Azaleas really lock up games at any point, as long as they can draw the right sequence of arrows at the right time that force their opponents to block in awkward ways, defend in weird ways. Yeah, so we've got a 3 block here in a Rage Spectre and a sink below from hand. Are we going to sink a card? It does not look like we're sinking a card, but we are avoiding that reload. So, or are we? That is a Rain Razors, a nice boop, +2, taking it up to 9, triggering a reload on hit if we so choose. No, we have an Unravel Aggression. So, no chi pitched, but a 5 block. So it's going to be very difficult for Anthony to get over this, but it looks like he is going to Codex here. Yeah, closing the combat chain now, shuffling his hand, playing a Knock the Death Whistle, getting his reload anyway. And hard to say what he would grab here, just the Endless Arrow. Good old reliable, guarantee a nice little arsenal target. And it may be a case that Kenneth went a little too hard at making sure this bolt and shot didn't hit. So this Endless Arrow comes into play. 6 dominate. Straight down. Let's see how. Yeah, Kenneth is just going to take the 6, keep a card, probably put it in his arsenal, and pass to the turn. Now, Anthony drawing up, having a card in his arsenal. Kenneth just tick up Tunic, arsenal pass. Get him next turn, champ. Now we have the Skullbone cross wrap activation, revealing shockingly an Endless Arrow. And Anthony is debating about whether that card is going to stay on top or go to the bottom. Does not look like he has made a decision on that one just yet. Yeah, straight to the bottom. We don't need it. We don't want it. Blind Azalea activation. If it's an arrow, it gets dominate. Otherwise, it's a premeditate. That's not too bad. It's definitely gotten worse. Play the premeditate. Time to activate some Death Dealer, I think. Yeah, pitch an amplifying arrow. Activate Death Dealer. Load a Remorseless. Draw a card. Now, 2 cards in hand. Play a Lace with Bloodroot. Play a Codex of Bloodrot. Making sure this Enigma has a couple of Bloodrots if possible. Still a card in hand. And we have got Remorseless coming in for 11. Blood Rot on hit. There's already a Blood Rot in play. Remorseless also has its own trigger, which is whenever it hits until the end of their next turn, whenever that hero plays an action card, they lose a life. So we'll see how Kenneth responds here. Obviously, no defense reactions viable from Arsenal, but no dominate. So it could be a lot worse. And I believe there are no more Rain Razors in play, although the deck has been shuffled, so it is hard to say. We've seen two played, and one obviously went into the pitch zone on turn one. Very important here for Anthony to start closing up this life gap because he really needs to expend an awful lot of threats to force his way through Kenneth's hand. And if there's ever a hand that Kenneth gets or that Anthony gets that isn't threatening too much, isn't forcing through some unhits, it could be a serious problem. Please don't dock yourself, Anthony, checking your phone on camera. And Kenneth just says, yeah, okay, I'll take it. Show me what you got. Kenneth gets two Blood Rots. Anthony gets a Ponder, gets the draw card, and really gets a choice of Arsenal here, which could be good, could be bad, could be super helpful. Let's find out. Yeah, cleaning up, nice tidy up here. We get a Tunic counter for Kenneth, and he's kept his 4 cards and his Arsenal. So really, he is looking to close this gap and say, yeah, your Remorseless doesn't matter all that much. Yeah, Spectral Manifestations, I'll take a life. I'll make a hammer. Hammer's free. So we're going to send 4. We're going to send lethal. So give us a card. Forced to give at least 1 card here if you're Anthony, which depending on what's in your arsenal could be a buffer, could be an arrow. 2 cards left in hand for Kenneth, card in arsenal, Tunic counter. Yeah, Kenneth is giving up that equipment now. Just saying, no, I'm keeping my whole hand. I'm keeping it. Or is he giving up 1 card? Is he taking the chance of putting his life total down to 2? And then whatever follows this is going to start becoming a serious problem. Either way, I think you're in a very sticky position if you're Anthony. The fewer cards that Azalea gets to keep, the bigger a problem it can become later in the game. In these situations where if you're not able to keep enough cards to properly threaten your opponent, particularly your Enigma opponent who is able to just ward a bunch of damage with their same things that are weapons, you can be in a world of hurt. Yeah, so we're going to give up 4 block here and see what Kenneth has to follow up, because he took 11 damage for this hand, 12 damage in total so far. So whatever it is going to have to be good. Now that is an instant. Remove 3 counters, put them on the Restless Coalescence. So that has dealt him no damage, and he's going to send in a Restless Coalescence for 5 go again. So now we're 20% above lethal, and we can make more Spectral Shields. How cool and good is this? Anthony is probably sitting there looking at his hand, going like, oh, I hope this is the end of it. I mean, sure, there's only 2 more cards. What could it be? And those Blood Rots, or at the very least, if Anthony can survive, they're going to take care of the board. But it's not really the best position you want to be in, because Kenneth here can give up his Restless and his Spectral Shields, or he can create a Spectral Shield using the Restless Yeah, Anthony giving up another card, what looks like a Murkmar Grapnel there to take take 2 damage, blocking 3. And Anthony is just going to send in a Phantasmaclasm for 9. Look at the 2 cards, put a card to the bottom, probably put. Doesn't matter. They're both 2 blocks, so Anthony would have to draw exactly a 6 power attack here. If he has battering bolts in his list, that's what he'll need to get. Otherwise, it is, in fact, all she wrote, ladies and gentlemen. And Kenneth, in fact, was fine taking 13 points of damage here because holy. Yeah, I'll take 13 to send back 18. Seems decent. Real good. Anthony couldn't find the Murkmar grapnels when they mattered. Managed to clear the mirror guy, but took an awful lot of damage in the process. And Kenneth just showing the power that is Enigma. So yeah, for those of you who are waiting for Zen to get banned, look out, because that's what's coming down the line. I am very worried that that deck might become a problem. Manifestations of Mirror Guy, Restless Coalescence, just powerful cards. Well played to both players. Really well done from Anthony. Did his best to try and claw his way out of a horrible position when he was just at 4 facing down a billion ward plus 29 life. And he managed to really claw that one back, did his best. But Kenneth had the life buffer. He just knew he was in a comfortable spot and was able to just push through and force through the damage. And at the end of the day, Azalea is not the most offensive deck in the world. She can be a bit of a glass cannon, and when you can't block out things like that, that's what happens at the end of it. You just end up forced into positions where you can't block effectively, and you have to give up too much of your hand. Yeah, so great game. Round 3, Soldiers on. Round 3 of this league has just been producing some cracking games, and I can't wait for the next one. I can't wait for the next game. I can't wait for round 4. And then who knows where we're going to go from there. So thank you, as always, for watching. I've been Ian. You can find me on Twitter at finals_spirit. Mostly talking about Flesh and Blood, but hey, I'm always happy to hear from anyone if they have any commentary on my commentary. Make sure you like the video, subscribe to Going In Gaming so that you get to see every episode of the League That Means Nothing too, and Season 3 when it comes out, when not Rosetta Thorn, sorry, I am Briar Brained, when Rosetta is legal. Make sure you like the video as well, comment, tell us how much you love this channel, how much you love the league, and hey, maybe you'll be in the next one fighting for nothing. I'll see you in the next one. Thanks for joining me.